Police in Kenya fire tear gas at protesters demanding the resignation of Electoral Commission officials. In Rwanda, an NGO is working to transform the way malnutrition is treated by using agriculture. And artists and gallerists shine at the Armory Show in New York City. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Tonight in Somalia, at least 5 people were killed and 13 others wounded after an explosion and gunfire attack on Mogadishu Traffic Police headquarters in the east of Somalia's capital. That's according to medical sources and witnesses. Al-Shabaab terrorists have claimed responsibility for the attack. Witnesses say they heard a huge explosion followed by gunfire at the entrance of the building near the old seaport in the Shanganis district. The Traffic Police Center is located near the United Arab Emirates Embassy. A car bomb was detonated by a suicide bomber, and moments later, a militant tried to enter the headquarters but was shot by police. According to security sources, 3 police officers are among the dead. In neighboring Kenya, police fired tear gas and water cannon on Monday at stone-throwing protesters in Nairobi. The demonstrators had gathered to demand that the commissions supervising next year's election resign. Hundreds of protesters gathered outside the offices of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission when some started to hurl stones at police standing near the gate of the commission offices. Police then fired tear gas canisters and track shot a water cannon to disperse the protesters. The opposition has accused the electoral body of bias in favor of the government, demanding it be disbanded. The electoral body has dismissed the charges and says its members will stay on. Also in East Africa, Rwandan officials say landslides caused by heavy rains have killed at least 49 people and destroyed hundreds of buildings over the weekend. Downpours brought down 500 homes, damaged infrastructure, and injured another 26 people Saturday night into Sunday morning. Countries across Africa, the region, have reported much heavier rainy season this year. Many of them are blaming the El Niño weather phenomenon. Where scientists say that malnutrition contributes to over 50% of deaths of children in developing countries. In Rwanda, an NGO, Guidance for Health, is working to transform the way malnutrition is treated by using agriculture as their key driver. VOA's Jackson Vunganyi has more.
Figures show that even as Rwanda continues to make remarkable progress in reducing childhood malnutrition, half of all children under the age of 5 are still chronically malnourished. An initiative started in 2010 seeks to address this issue among some of the rural communities in this East African country. At Guidance for Health, a local NGO working a few miles outside of the capital, Kigali, mothers are trained on ways to fight malnutrition. Ann Wanland is the country director for Guidance for Health.
We have a very diverse training program that addresses, all the related health issues, reproductive health, breastfeeding, malaria, TB, HIV, but then we also really focus on healthy eating at the critical stages of growth for young children. And so we're trying to equip mothers, mostly 95% of our caregivers are mothers in our program, with education, what to feed your child when, to promote growth, and also providing critical resources like small livestock and diverse foods for them to plant in their garden.
The World Food Programme says that the first 2 years of life are a critical window of opportunity in a child's life. It says that it is in this period that you can prevent the damage caused by early childhood malnutrition. Guidance for Health has been partnering with local health centers to train women on ways to fight malnutrition, basing on some of the crops they grow on their farms.
Chronic malnutrition is basically irreversible, unlike acute malnutrition, where, it's very visibly present. You see children who are essentially starving. That's a problem you can fix medically. And so just having the right series of interventions, in 3 weeks, a child who looked very, very sick can go to normal.
How do you explain that a population that majorly engages in agriculture has high rates of malnutrition?
Well, it's fascinating because, on a global scale, we produce more food than we could possibly eat. Yet 805 million people in the world are undernourished. In Rwanda, it's the same issue of failing food systems, but where we come in is really on the education piece. We do believe that even with very limited land and resources, vulnerable families can grow everything they need to feed their families first. And we also provide market vegetables for them to generate income if they have any surplus.
So do you see yourself at a point where this becomes a self-sustaining model where you get out of the equation?
Absolutely.
Where the mothers start training other mothers?
Absolutely. And we see that happening already in a very informal way. Mothers will share lessons with their neighbors. They put all of our handouts up on their walls in their houses, and they have groups that they've formed out of our trainings that they continue to meet and talk about, all of the issues, and some of them are cooperatives now. Some of them even supply back to us. So we have a woman, for example, who grows so much dodo, which is amaranth, that's a leafy green, very, very nutritious, an indigenous crop, that we now purchase from her to distribute to other mothers in her program. And sometimes she'll just share with other mothers.
Experts say that even though emergency food aid can help alleviate hunger and other related issues, it does not work as a long-term solution to fight malnutrition. And that's why, as Gardens for Health states, its mission is to use agriculture as a long-term driver for better nutrition and overall health. For Voice of America, I'm Jackson Vunganyi.
Well, Africa's biggest gorilla is being poached and pushed out of its habitat in northeastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The plummeting population of the so-called Grau's gorilla has prompted a number of conservationists and their NGOs to call for this great ape to be designated as critically endangered in hopes of protecting the ones still left. VOA's senior investigative analyst Jeffrey Young reports.
Grau's gorillas once ruled the jungles of Central Africa. Now, as their numbers dwindle to some 3,800, a 77% drop in the past 20 years, the huge primates are struggling to survive. Standing an average 1.7 meters tall and 163 kilograms, the Grau's, or eastern lowland gorilla, is the largest of the 4 gorilla subspecies. Their natural habitat is the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo's Kahuzi-Biega and Maiko National Parks. What threatens their extinction is detailed by Wildlife Conservation Society's Joe Walston.
The main threat to Grau's gorillas has been the overall insecurity of the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, and that results in a number of different pressures on gorillas, but also on communities. And that's also resulted in lawless activity occurring throughout the region, including artisanal mining, which is having grave effects on nature, on the forests and on people, the poisonings of waters, the extraction of materials, and Grau's gorillas have suffered as a part of that.
What miners seek to the detriment of gorillas and other wildlife are so-called rare earth minerals used in electronic manufacturing. Keeping this mining out of Kahuzi-Biega and other DRC national parks has been difficult. The Wildlife Conservation Society says some 200 park rangers have been killed in the past 20 years. Via Skype, University of Sterling primate researcher Liz Williamson.
The rangers have not been able to operate in the parks for most of the last 2 decades, so it's now they need to be able to get back in, because stability it's rocky, but it's coming back to Eastern DRC. The fact that it has been so unstable has allowed rebels to become established in these areas, and that's what needs to come under control.
The Congo Research Group at New York University says there are at least 70 armed groups operating in the eastern DRC, which has displaced about 1.6 million people. Major forces there include Rwanda's FDLR, the Ugandan ADF, and a wing of Burundi's FNL. Removing these armed units is a top priority if the region and its dwindling guerrilla population are to be stabilized. That assertion via Skype from the WSC's Andre Plumtree in Kampala, Uganda.
The key thing we want the government to do is work on disarming these rebel groups and making sure that they are taken out of any of these protected areas. One of the options could be employing some of them to work on protecting these parks rather than have them getting involved in illegal activities.
Whether people are insurgents, miners, or just hungry locals, they need to eat. And that makes the large Growers gorilla an attractive target for poaching, despite DRC laws prohibiting these apes from being taken. WCS conservationist Joe Walston, whose NGO is pushing for Growers gorillas to be designated as critically endangered, says killing for meat is driving these apes and other wildlife to the brink.
Unsustainable extraction of bushmeat leads to collapses in populations of threatened species. And that is both a negative thing for, obviously, those species and conservation in general, but for the human population as well.
The NGO World Wildlife Fund's Boss Hubricks outlines his and other conservationist plan to help Growers gorillas survive.
First of all, disarming the miners that are illegally settled in those core areas. Secondly, by better training and equipping and motivating rangers to protect the last stronghold of the growers. Thirdly, is to work more closely with communities that live near those growers to provide them with alternative livelihood opportunities so that they don't need to hunt those species for their survival. And lastly, to get illegal mining sites out of the areas where they are currently operating.
Hubricks and other conservationists say that without such action, the only gorillas people might see in the future could be in zoos such as this one in Washington, D.C.
Now, for more on gorilla poaching, we are joined by VOA senior investigative analyst Jeffrey Young. Hello, Jeff. Now, good piece there. We know that one of the biggest challenges that Democratic Republic of Congo faces is security. And therefore, as one person there alluded to, key is to first find peace in those places, right?
Yes, and DRC, the conservationists are calling on it to secure its eastern border. 70 armed groups moving in and out of DRC at will. No country can afford to have this kind of insecurity. So that's the first thing that conservationists want. Drive these people out of the country and secure the borders. Then they want to train more park rangers. To enforce the law, to protect the animals in the parks, you have to have rangers who are there, eyes and ears.
Yeah.
So they need more rangers and they need more training and equipment. This is key.
And to have those rangers operating in those areas, there has to be somebody who is in charge. That means the central government has to have control, or at least the regional government, in order to have funding, have a structure, and have proper, deployment of these guys.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what it takes, not just to protect Growers gorillas, but all wildlife that is threatened with extinction, and there's a lot of it.
Yeah, and then there was a mention of also the threat from those who hunt them for food, who are locals. There's a need perhaps for just educating people of the need to preserve this animal, these apes, because they're really getting rare now.
But then people are hungry, so, we get into a human nature thing, Vincent. People, but there's also the miners. There's illegal mining going on in parts of DRC, and when the miners are running these illegal mines and a gorilla shows up, it's just easier to pick up a rifle and shoot the gorilla, and you don't have any gorilla problem anymore. But a gorilla was killed.
And we're talking about, in a few seconds, the miners. This connected again to big, corporations around the world.
Yes, they are.
Have interest in those minerals from those countries.
That's right. Electronics. Your phone has things that came from DRC, from little mines.
Yeah. Well, it's a big fight, but I think it's worth the fight, because those apes are not only a heritage to that area, but for all of us as human beings, we need to have all those animals to.
Yes, we do, especially ones that are part of our own family tree.
Exactly. Well, Jeff, thank you very much for joining us today. Jeff Young is VOA's senior investigative analyst. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered during the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump's pronouncement received more scrutiny in the U.S. and beyond. Stay with us.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They tell you what people are talking about. So, for an in-depth look at the stories trending high on social media, turn to #VOA. It's not your typical talk show. From politics to pop culture, #VOA brings in the people leading the conversation, engages the audience, and gets answers to your questions. #VOA. Smart talk for smart people.
There was action outside the debate hall.
Political season is about to change, too.
VOA News, Las Vegas.
In the race for the White House, the presumptive Republican presidential nominee is Donald Trump. Now that he's reached that status, his pronouncements are receiving more scrutiny in the United States and beyond. VOA's Michael Bowman reports Trump, as well as Democratic contenders Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, have all spoken out against the Trans-Pacific Partnership in a year when few defended free trade on the presidential campaign trail.
Trans-Pacific is going to destroy your auto industry in Ohio.
Signed earlier this year, TPP aims to lower tariffs and boost trade among 12 Pacific Rim nations. The pact has yet to go into effect and is getting no love on the U.S. presidential campaign trail.
I did hope that the TPP negotiated by this administration would put to rest a lot of the concerns that many people have expressed about trade agreements. Once I saw what the outcome was, I opposed it.
As Secretary of State during President Barack Obama's first term, Clinton praised TPP as the gold standard in trade agreements. Her misgivings about the pact as a presidential candidate point to an overall souring of trade as an issue in America's current election cycle.
When you look at the horrible trade deals where we're losing a fortune to every country we do business with, our jobs are being sucked away. Our jobs are being sucked away. It's unbelievable what's happening.
At times, the debate can seem confusing. For instance, Trump rails against tariffs placed on U.S. exports, the very tariffs TPP would eliminate.
When you send your beautiful agriculture, the best in the world, you send your agricultural product in, what happens? 38% tax, right? 38% tax into Japan. No, think of it.
The White House is standing firm.
From an economic, strategic, and values perspective, we have a very strong argument to make about the wisdom of Congress moving to approve the TPP agreement that the president negotiated.
The Republican-led Congress has granted fast-track authority to facilitate the approval of trade pacts, but neither chamber is giving any indication it plans to vote on TPP in the immediate future. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Well, our next story is about a Ugandan Mandela Washington Fellow and a budding entrepreneur whose dream is to become the largest manufacturer of beauty and home care products. Africa 54's Paul Diho has more.
Thank you very much. Being passionate about your work is a major key to success, and Martin Mugabe fits into that category. It was his passion that triggered him to start Twinkle Industries, a beauty and home care products company. Since returning to his native land in 2014, Martin Mugabe has turned his passion into a profitable business and literally turned this house into a mini factory.
When you visited us last year, we were really beginning this. And we were going out to the market and testing to see what really was in there for us. And things have really rapidly changed in a period of about a year. I can really boastfully say I have now a professional team. And I really don't have to struggle like the way I did when you came last time.
Mugabe says that manufacturing beauty and home care goods in various products is a business that he had thought about for the last 3 years. Now his products are sold in shops across Kampala and the surrounding areas.
At the beginning of the year, last year, we were entering the industry for the first time. We were struggling to get customers, begging the smallest of retailers to take our products, and going even as far as asking individual users to buy a one tin just to have that experience. Things have changed now in a way that our major primary customer now, we are focusing on the biggest wholesalers in this country.
When I first met Martin Mugabe nearly 2 years ago, he told me that he didn't have any technical knowledge on the process of making beauty and home care products. But he certainly does now. And his ambition to take on the giant beauty and home cleaning goods companies.
We have studied the market. The market has appreciated our products. And we no longer manufacture to look for whatever we can find. We get orders, we manufacture those orders.
Manufacturing beauty and home care products can be a perfect business opportunity if you have the right formula and people to do the job. Mildred Awili is the company chemist.
Yeah, I use Twinkle products. Okay. Whenever I go to the salon, I carry my own products and then they work on me. Mostly, I've been working hand in hand with the Uganda Industrial Research Institute. And then we buy our products from Desbro or Sky Chemicals. And then I come here and do the process and make the product.
Although there are many products on the market, having the right team to market your products can make all the difference.
Before I started working with Twinkle, the marketing team from Twinkle came to my place. I bought, they convinced me. So I bought and I used it, my girl used it, and I found out it was working. Actually, that's why I called them asking for a job, because I didn't want to sell something which will backfire on me. Like, I want to sell something whereby it will work on the customers very well, so that the next time I go back, they will give me positive results and I will also be happy.
Like any other startup company, Twinkle Industries is not without its challenges. For example, getting her product line certified and approved by the Uganda Bureau of Standards took a long time. But despite those hurdles, Mugabe says that the sky is the limit. Paul Ndiho, VOA News.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Artists and gallerists shine at the Amory Show in New York. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Somalia, at least 3 police officers are dead in an Al-Shabaab car bomb attack in the capital, Mogadishu. In Ivory Coast, former First Lady Simone Bagbo set to go on trial on charges of crimes against humanity over her alleged role during the post-electoral violence in 2010. In France, 2 former Rwandan mayors go on trial for allegations that they encouraged a massacre of several hundred Tutsis during the 1994 genocide. In Senegal, technology developer Ousseynou Khadim Bey still hoping to reach more people after releasing his gaming app 1 year ago. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back. Now, every year, there are a number of mega art shows that take place in different parts of the world and fuel the international art market. One of them was held here in the U.S. Africa 54 Zoe Ludaki was at the Armory Show and talked to a lot of artists and gallerists.
The Armory Show, an annual New York tradition, was devoted this year for the first time ever to contemporary art from and about Africa. Under the title African Perspectives, the two curators, Yvette Mutumba and Julia Grosse, bring together artists of varied practices and points of view.
The idea really is to invite a young generation of artists who work in very different media, from drawing to photo to installation, and also work with different topics that concern them. But of course there are also specific themes that come up yet and again because they're simply things that are relevant to their realities.
This work by Dan Holter, or Dan's work in general, speaks about migration, particularly migration within the African continent and the position of the refugee.
Dan Holter is a white Zimbabwean artist currently living in South Africa. New York media refer to him as an artist to watch.
So this work is titled Patterns of Migration, which is obviously a visual pun on the patterning, and also, if we look over to that map, patterns of movement within the geopolitical borders. This sculpture of the bags basically shows the refugee or immigrant as an identityless or faceless traveler.
The bags and the woven material he uses are not accidental.
These bags are traded by the artist with people entering South Africa, often on the Zimbabwean South African border. So each bag has a lived history.
Another artist to watch is photographer Namsa Luba. Her work speaks of African identity, seen through Western eyes. Her series Zulu Kids is informed by her Guinean descent.
All these people look like a statuette because in my religion, from my mother's side, I am animist, and we use statuette like tools. It's like to try to work with the invisible to make it visible.
Kenyan artist Ito Malinda's work negotiates personal and national identity with her piece titled Representation. And South African sculptor Jared Ginsberg creates an almost immaterial piece of kinetic sculpture called Loop in Bamboo that, unless you stop what you're doing and look closely, you might miss it. For Africa 54, I'm Zoe Liudaki.
Fabulous. Well, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us here in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A lot of idioms in American English come from sports. Here's one that comes from baseball.
Keep your eye on the ball.
Let's learn how to use this expression when not talking about sports.
Hey, Jonathan, how is your Arabic class going?
It's going okay. I'm not studying as much as I should be.
Jonathan, you had better keep your eye on the ball if you want to win that scholarship to study in Egypt. Study harder.
I know. You're right.
To keep your eye on the ball means to keep your attention on something important to you, usually to reach a goal. This idiom can be used in all situations. In our example, Anna tells Jonathan he needs to keep his eye on the ball if he wants to get a scholarship. And that's English in a Minute.